plat application to the site plan review, and that would be subsidiary to the site plan review.
Well, we'll all have them in front of us in a minute. At any rate, so there's some redundancies. We asked Bob Bordeaux to do things that he should have never had to do.
Yes.
Because they weren't relevant, they weren't pertinent to what he was asking for, and there were other things.
But they were on the list, so we had to do it.
So we had to do it, and it made and we paid our lawyer and the other lawyer.
That turned into tens of thousands of dollars of expense to the town, which was really basically unnecessary.
Well, it wasn't the fact that we had extra things on the list that caused the vast majority of that expenditure. I think that even if we end up with things that are on the list that are going to be irrelevant 99% of the time, that's okay, because we should feel comfortable waiving stuff that makes sense to waive. And it does have a burden, because then and I understand that the applicant has to justify, put some sort of justification for waiving number 17 or whatever, and 18 and 20 and 34.
If you remember correctly, I remember when I first started onto the board, the fact that certain items were waived because it was felt by the board not to be applicable was a point of contention for the opposition to the application in the first place, which sent us into a lot of legal wrangling.
Okay, here it is,
It's
guys.
basically unnecessary.
We're not going to carry on conversations among board members, random, willy-nilly.
Absolutely.
We're not going to do that. It's not going to be a perpetual discussion among board members about different subjects every night. We're going to go through, I was the worst offender for interrupting. I got a pen thrown at my eye one night.
Was that your eye?
No, it's just at you in general.
But we're not going to sit here, we're not going to carry on conversations between two people like, we don't need to do that. We're going to take this and we're going to look at it. We're not going to do it tonight. We're going to take it home. Hopefully you guys will review it for a half an hour or something, or just before the meeting next week will be fine. I've already got ideas about this because I was saturated with the darn thing during the site plan review process. So anyway, I think it needs to be fixed a little bit. So that's one of our missions, okay? Okay, where's the agenda?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
You made a statement earlier that it's not critical, but I think everyone should keep in mind that there isn't only one property owner in Rec 1.
You're right.
There are two lots owned by two different owners,
Yep.
and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that we just shouldn't think that this is always about Moose Mountain Rec. Right?
Mhm.
This
It
is
could be other things.
this is a zone in our town
Mm-hmm.
that any number of people may end up owning property in that area at some point in the future.
That's my point, exactly. We have no idea what's gonna be there, so let's make it a little bit better. And, good point.
And we may very well end up with some number, not just one more site plan. We may end up with several of them.
Who knows?
Over the next few years.
Who knows, you're right.
Which would be awesome. I think it would be great if we had more people doing more stuff up there. So I think the more we can streamline this, the better. And I think it's a good thing that you're trying to push through here.
Okay, good deal. So, where's my agenda? I hid it somewhere.
Here's one.
There it is. Okay. That's permits, clarifications, different types of applications. So we're gonna look at that, we're gonna come back and do it next time. CIP, capital improvement. That's something I've been remiss on when I committee ran it.
Mr. Chair, if we could, maybe we should reconvene the committee that we had. We've lost a couple of members, but maybe we should sit together again and look things over, especially after the winter. I'm sure Ed could.
For what, CIP?
Yeah, and I'm sure Ed could verify that road conditions have changed on many of our secondary roads and so on, that we might want to have a look at.
It's not just roads either.
Yeah, it's all well, the capital improvement as far as the
Buildings, everything.
Yeah, those I think we've addressed during public meeting on the last 2 years.
Some of it, yeah. Well, the town, we've gone off on a bunch of tangents with that. We've had an architect, $10,000 opinion review on that building, and well.
Well, my point being, of course, that the people do count on this board to keep a close eye on how their tax dollars are spent,
I don't know what
If we have a solid, program as far as what we're looking at, possible expenditures.
I don't know
It
if
could be
that's
a
our
good-
job.
It could be, no, it's.
Keeping the eye on the tax dollars.
No, it's a good idea to keep a good guideline for the people. We're expected to look
All
at.
right, capital improvement, the only thing capital improvement has to do with is set down an assessment of circumstances, situations of the big capital of the time, that the selectmen can use, and perhaps a roadmap into the future on what the selectmen can use. I'll get, 1 second. What the selectmen can use as the enforcement body to deal with things like roads, buildings, et cetera, et cetera. That's what the job
And
is.
general condition thereof.
So, I think as we found out, CIP, it can be a very, very large job.
Yeah. It can be.
And my suggestion, or maybe it's more of a question than a suggestion, is it feasible for us to leverage other resources here in town that are focused on particular areas that are of interest for the CIP and rely on those groups to provide the basic information, and the CIP committee or whoever it would be a clearinghouse for that information, and then filling in the gaps where there wasn't another resource in town. For example, the roads are a huge part of it, but we have a road committee.
Correct.
And could we turn over the road assessment and whatever else we need to do related to roads to get the road committee to provide that input? We've got the townhouse next door. We've got the heritage committee. Maybe they're spending a lot of time and money thinking about that. Maybe we can get them to provide an assessment of that. And it might be that the CIP committee maybe has to end up focusing on computers that are in here and maybe this building. And I'm just can't get out of everything probably. But is there a way to farm out 80%?
Can I answer that?
Well, you're the chairman.
They're already doing that. The road committee's already doing that. I mean, although I'm not in 100% agreement with the way they're operating it, but nonetheless, that's what the road committee's doing, is forming some kind of plan to take care of the roads. What it is it's not a plan that they can set in concrete because it has a lot of problems with revenue. But what roads are going to be repaired. What nobody's done is a status of all the roads in town. I started doing it, and I got a whole bunch of stuff on my computer, and I got sidetracked.
But my point would be that maybe we, instead of going that route, maybe just say to the road committee, hey, could you help us out? We need, your roadmap is great, but what we need is an assessment. Can come up with a format that lists each of the sections of the road and their current things so we can update it year after year and something. I mean, just try to get them to do the work.
A point of order.
Let me finish.
Because I know you did a lot of work on it, right? You went to every single road here in town and were looking.
Yeah, but pretty much did.
And it seems like that that's probably redundant to work the road committee is probably already doing, even if they're not providing the information in a way that CIP requires it. But maybe we can just get them to write it down in a way that is useful, right?
Well, we can try that. Here's what generally happens, okay? A bunch of people got a bug to hire an architect to come up with what's needed for the town hall. So that's my point, is people go off on tangents. And the result from one tangent and the result from another tangent are sometimes 180 degrees opposite. The $10,000 architect appraisal is enormously expensive, and it had to be, in order to justify $10,000, enormously complicated. And this has to be done, and there's a million things that could be done over there to solve the problems. The difference is there's 5 different people doing 5 different things, and there's 5 different solutions, because I've seen them all. I did an assessment of that building and what to do to fix it from an engineering standpoint that was inexpensive. The point is, nobody seems to want to act on those things, except the $10,000 thing, but nobody can afford it. I mean, the whole thing is, it's really confusing. And I see what you're saying, and I agree with you, but we already farmed the work out to an architect for the building next door. And have anybody read that?
And just bits and pieces of it.
Huh? Well, we're not going to do it because we can't come up with the money under any circumstances to do anything. There are 5 or 6 different ways to save that building. And The point is, you're right, that's the Heritage Commission's effort. So they've done that, their job. We can't implement it because it's too costly. So there are alternatives to that. Now, whether we want to pursue those alternatives, we can go to the Heritage Commission and say, look, that's ridiculous, but they don't think so, because they commissioned it. Let's come up with a better thing. So, all right, Ed and Jim, tell me what you
Excuse me. But is it really the CIP's job to go about telling how to take care of that building, or just create an inventory and make a note on its condition, and then that's the end of the CIP portion of that building?
No, not necessarily. The CI capital improvements means not just the conditions and assessment of current standards or conditions, but what is going to be necessary in a game plan to accomplish the work, to do capital improvements over a period of time. And that takes a certain amount of professional acumen in particular fields.
No, I was
the
just-
roads are the roads, that somebody's got to know about roads, somebody's got to know about the building. I mean, that's CIP, capital improvement, not capital conditions. You know, capital conditions, we can make an assessment, the building is this, the architect said it was that, and these are the things that need to be done. However, we're not going to do those things, we can't afford them. We'll never do them. We're not going to come up with $100,000 for that building. Do you think we are?
Well, no, I'm just trying to find the clear point as to where the CIP stops and all that, and then it's up to the selectmen or the Heritage Commission to carry on and do the work.
Well, I don't know that it ever stops in this way. The roads constantly deteriorate, the roads constantly age, so they're always changing in their condition, slowly, but they change. So CIP is an ongoing process. The condition of the roads today, well, we've improved several last year. Next year there's a battle plan. I mean, Brad's running that show. I should have been more involved, but I had other issues. Because I know a little bit about roads, but I guess the point is, CIP has to do with guiding the selectmen from a professional standpoint, wherever we get the information, from the road committee, but I don't think the road committee is professional. There's one guy on there who knows something about the roads, but you know a lot more about roads, but you're not supposed to be on the road committee. You're supposed to be.
I haven't been attending the meetings.
Yeah, you're not.
They haven't been notifying me.
You shouldn't be there. You should be there as
Just
an
an
advisor.
observer. Yep.
That's right, as an advisor.
Yep.
But you shouldn't be on the road because it's a conflict, obviously.
Sure.
Sure. Sure.
Well, the Heritage and Road Committees are both under the auspices of the Board of Selectmen. The CIP runs under the auspices of the Planning Board. The Planning Board can only request any information unless so ordered by the Board of Selectmen. If we wish to coordinate with those boards, we have to bring it before the Board of Selectmen and ask for them to provide the cooperation from the other boards so that we may conduct a proper assessment of the town's assets and the condition thereof so that we can provide a guideline for the future of how we plan to, keep our infrastructure updated.
Well, that may be the mechanical process of how we involve them.
That's the actual process.
The mechanical, that's
No,
how we
that's
actually
the
do.
actual process. We cannot make any
But
request of any other
the Heritage,
without the permission of
the Heritage
Board of Selectmen.
Commission in and of itself cannot assess the buildings. They don't have the professional acumen.
Yes,
So what,
but we
wait,
cannot
stop,
tell them.
stop. Huh? So what they did was they went to see an architect, and the architect, he's famous for restoring old buildings, and it's just one of those things, because that's what they felt was their mission, and that's how they should accomplish it. That was one method of solving that building's problems that we cannot afford to do. There are other things that need to be done over there, and they're strikingly necessary. Because I know what they are, because I know the engineering aspect of it. But I'm a member of the board and a member of the town. Let me finish before you
Well,
formulate
Mr. Chair,
your
you-
next.
you stop-
Don't
you
emote
stop.
for a minute. Don't emote. Whoa, stop. The point is,
You stopped me on a point of
the
order.
heritage,
with
the heritage,
judges.
the heritage, don't talk when I'm talking, and I won't talk when you're talking. The Heritage Commission has no professional ability to do any of this stuff. They have to go hire somebody, and they have done that. So we can go over there to them and say, we don't like the results of that. Please go find.
And they can say,
Jim, shut up.
they can tell us to.
Shut up and listen to what I've got to say, then you can talk.
You don't dictate to them. You don't have any single power right
Jim,
now.
shut up.
You want to throw me out? Throw me out.
I want you to
But you
listen to
have
what
no
I
process
want
to
you to
have that.
listen to what I've got to say and don't talk when I'm talking.
It's a point of
If you
order.
can't do that, don't interrupt me, go home. If you do want to sit here and listen to what I have to say, fine. If you don't, please leave the room. I'm not going to have a yelling match with you. Those people do what they do, and we have no control over them. The point is, they have found a solution that we cannot implement. If we are to help the town with capital improvements, it is our purview to find a solution that can be implemented because we can afford it, and there are people in town that can either provide it or don't provide it, but we can't spend $100,000, but there are certain things that need to be done. Now, the Heritage Foundation, if we go to them, we have the ability to speak to them off the record and talk to them about this, and then go to the selectmen and enact the mechanical process of getting them involved. But we don't need to do that
As
to
a
talk
board,
to them.
as a board, we cannot go to them off the record.
Yes, we can. You can sit down with them and talk to them about what needs to be done in the town without having a formal meeting. That is not like a planning board.
As a board, we cannot present anything to them without.
We are not doing it as a
meeting.
board. We can sit down and have a discussion of what is wrong with the building. We can do that.
We don't need backdoor meetings for nothing.
It's not a backdoor
Look
meeting.
behind you and read that.
Jim, we can sit down with anybody we want as individuals or collectively and talk about a building structural problems. We cannot talk about making law or doing anything like that unless we are a board. We can sit and discuss what's wrong with the building, and that's the way it is. Let's not argue about this. Rob, go ahead.
If, with your indulgence, I'd like to make 2 points.
Go ahead.
First of all, I think that according to our rules of procedure, you are correct in preventing conversations back and forth, and that one person has the floor at a time, and that you get to decide who has the floor. So I think you're correct on that. My second point is, reading from page 15 of 16 in our rules of procedure. Under section 17, committees, 17.2, Capital Improvement Program Committee. In the event that such committee is formed, the purpose is to aid the Board of Selectmen in their consideration of the annual budget and to define and recommend the long-term capital needs of the town projected over a period of at least 6 years. The research and information gathered by the Capital Improvement Program Committee shall be consistent with the master plan, the goals and needs of the town. A draft capital improvement program shall be developed with supportive documentation to be submitted to the planning board for review and final preparation prior to submitting to the Board of Selectmen. The CIP committee should be comprised of 1 selectman appointed by the selectman chair, 2 elected and/or alternate planning board members appointed by the planning board chair, and 4 members of the general public appointed by the planning board. All terms of office for 1 year. And that's what it says about, that's 17.2 in its entirety. So what I get from that is that our rules of procedure have tell us some of what we need to do. And the purpose is to aid the Board of Selectmen in their consideration of the annual budget and to define and recommend the long-term capital needs of the town projected over a period of at least 6 years. So we've got some information about what we should be doing.
We wrote that.
And that's great. It's good that we've got it down on paper because we can go back to that and understand what we need to do. Now, I think that it's important. So we're producing something to be consumed by the selectmen. If it's going to be useful for the selectmen, then it should be consistent with the other groups that they've appointed. So, for example, the selectmen have appointed the road committee. It wouldn't be useful to the selectmen if the CIP report had a completely different assessment of the roads, completely different plan for what the roads need over what period of time than what the road committee is telling them. Whether or not the road committee is more qualified or less qualified than whatever the CIP committee comes up with, if we want something that's useful to the selectmen, we shouldn't have several different points of view coming from different people that they've appointed, right? It's, if we want this to be useful, if the selectmen are going with what the Heritage, are getting the information about this building from the Heritage Commission, then what's in the CIP should reflect what the Heritage Commission's data says.
Well,
And even if the numbers, even if in our judgment, those numbers are something that we will never do because the budget is too big, maybe that's okay, that we're presenting a consistent picture to them all in one place, all as a unit, right?
can I interrupt for a minute? I'm not.
You don't have to interrupt because I'm done.
All right, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Okay,
That's
I'm not disallowing anything you say. What I'm telling you is that we can sit down with anybody and discuss, as professionals, the problems with the building.
Go ahead.
We, not as a board for instance, when I did a report, and there was some comments from the floor, I did a report for the selectmen a couple of years ago about the building next door. I didn't do it as a member of the planning board. I did it as an engineer at the behest of Ernie Brown about what needed to be done to that building. To do certain things, not the whole thing the architect described, but certain things that are really in dire need of being done. I guess my point is, the Heritage Commission has already done their thing. And what the report has in it, some of it's valid, some of it is undoable because of its expense. So alternative methods have to be found. Now, we may work with them to come up with alternative methods. That may be something we can do. I'm not saying don't involve the Heritage Commission at all. That's not my point. My point is that if we're going to recommend something be done to the building that needs to be done dramatically, that can't be afforded via the architect plan. If there's an alternative plan that'll accomplish something, some of it's going to fall down. Some of the plaster's coming in. Once it starts to go, we're really going to have problems over there. I guess it doesn't really matter if it falls apart to some people, but to other people it does. I'm not saying go above or beyond or away from something that has already been worked on by other people, but maybe they need to be involved. But I'm not going to sit down with Mary Lou if I'm having a discussion with you about the engineering aspect of fixing something in that building. She may not be there. She's the budget gal that hired the architect. Not that she wouldn't become involved at some point. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm not saying get away from the rules of procedure, but the board has to come up with, if it comes up with any assessment at all, something that they will ascribe to if they agree with it. But they don't have the acumen to get involved and discuss the structural aspects of something. Do you know what I'm saying?
Can I respond?
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 points. First, you're right that we don't need to have a public meeting unless we have a quorum,
Right.
in which case you absolutely have to have it
Yep.
a public meeting.
That's the law.
My second point is that I don't think that the RSAs were not written with the intent that somebody on the planning board has to be a licensed engineer, right? This all has to work without anybody in the local government having any
There are other people in town.
particular expertise, right? We don't have to be. And my third point is that I can't see myself voting for a CIP document to forward on to the selectmen if I think that the road committee or the Heritage Commission or some other body whose purview is covered by the CIP is going to call bullshit on it and say that what the planning board has given you is not right. I don't think that we're doing the selectmen the service that we're supposed to be doing if the road committee isn't going to say, yes, that's consistent with what our understanding of the roads, and the Heritage Commission saying that's consistent with our understanding of what is here. Now, to your point, it may be that to get to the point where we have a document that we're happy forwarding to the selectmen, and that the Heritage Commission is going to be supportive of, that we may have lots of meetings with them to talk about what the 6-year plan should be for this building, right?
Yep.
And make sure, but at the end of that, we should be on the report that comes from CIP
Should be the same as-
should be consistent with what the Heritage Commission ends up with at that point in time, right? And so that, I think that we will, it's not worth going through the effort if one of our goals isn't to make sure that the various groups in town that are already working on parts of our capital aren't going to be on board with what comes out of this. Either because we changed their minds or because we went with what their plan is.
Well, the road committee, away from the building next door, the road committee, the way they operate, because I'm on it, but I haven't been there in a while, is they pick the projects they're going to do in order of priority. And Brad's idea, he runs it, is to go out 5 years or 10 years. And he's working on that stuff. So I'm not saying supersede them in any way. That's not my point. Work with them, however, because there is acumen there. Brad he knows what he's doing. Ed knows what he's doing. I mean, there may be conflicts in the town between persons, but the roads are what they are, and what needs to be done to them is what needs to be done. And fine-tuning a plan is something that everybody can get together and do. That building over there is unique. It's a real problem. There's some pretty bad stuff with it. We can sit down with the Heritage Commission and that report and look at it and determine whether any of it is usable. I mean, there are a couple of things that are usable. I would just tell you to read it. And I know it doesn't depend on somebody on the board being an engineer, but there are other people that have the same kind of acumen that I might have, or Brad might have, or Ed has, that need to be involved on a different level than has already been presented to the town. Not that the Heritage... I kind of knew this was going to come to this when they decided to spend the money to have the assessment, because it was going to be a matter of, well, we've got this very expensive assessment that's not going to get implemented. And these are the things that need to be done. And somehow there has to be some sort of mitigation or leading.
But that was a warrant article, right?
That was voted on at a public meeting and
Yes, it was.
by all but one.
Town meeting,
Yes, to spend the 10,000.
right? So at some point we have to
Oh, and approved by all
just
but one.
just go with it, right? I mean,
Well,
Some-
you can't go with it. We don't have the
no, you
money.
have to stop second.
But that-
At some
but
point, you have to
that's not
stop
our-
second guessing the $10,000, right? Sorry, I mean, not that we have to like do the plan, but that we have to stop second guessing the spending of $10,000 because the people that showed up at town meeting said yes to that.
I'm not second guessing it. I'm just saying we did it. That was it.
Back to my point that I tried to make before, is where the planning board's developing the CIP starts and stops. I don't think it's the job of the CIP to tell the town how to spend its money, where to spend it, what needs to be done, but it's up to the selectmen.
Yep.
They can decide to spend the $100,000, or they can decide that that is the stuff that needs to be done, but they're gonna get somebody else to do the job.
Well, they can only spend it out of the discretionary fund. They can't just...
Well, they could bring it up as a warrant article.
A warrant article,
So
right.
that's my point. I think roads, I'll say roads. Lay out the roads, an inventory of the roads and all of the associated things that go with it, culverts, driveways, and all of that stuff.
Yep.
The conditions of those roads and our recommendation on what needs to be done, but the price should be left out of it. Because prices are gonna change, and it's not, this is a land use, not a financial planning board. That's the selectmen's job. They'll
Well,
take that information, we recommend that, given that this road, whatever name it is needs to be updated, and this is how it should be done, then the selectmen can take that and say, we agree with that, this is in line with the CIP. Now they will take it and get estimates or whatnot. I don't believe it's the CIP's job. to
I never
put a
did
price tag
either,
on
I
it.
never did. My concept was never to come up with a price.